Welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast for leaders of growing restaurant companies looking to take their business to the next level. In nearly 2 decades covering restaurants, I've gained access to some of this industry's most influential decision makers, and I'm letting you in on the conversations. In today's episode, you'll hear from the president of a family-run breakfast chain about how it's standing out in a crowded category and why sticking to the fundamentals of menu and service are still paramount to breakfast and brunch consumers. Mike Stasko Jr. is the president of Sunny Street Café, a 22-unit franchise based in Columbus, Ohio that has experienced positive traffic and sales comps even while many of its competitors are struggling. But it's not crazy menu innovation or tech bells and whistles that are driving this success. Instead, Sunny Street has simply doubled down on a great service and great execution of its core menu items. I sat down with Mike in a Columbus Sunny Street location to talk about the state of daytime dining and why breakfast and brunch consumers in particular just want to go somewhere where everybody knows their name. In this conversation, you will learn more about why executing on your core menu items is the most important thing that you can do with your menu, why trying new things with your core menu is a great way to innovate, and why meal occasions dictate how people eat and your menu should accommodate. If you learn anything from this episode, go follow Takeaway wherever you're listening to podcasts and leave some feedback. It's the best way to get these lessons into the hands of fellow restaurant leaders. Jumping now into my interview with Sunny Street Café president Mike Stasko Jr. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 4 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Mike Stasko, president of Sunny Street Café. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Sam. How's it going?
This is the best kind of interview to do in person and also near my home. So thank you for that. But you're based here in Columbus like I am.
Yep.
You guys are a family business. And am I right to say founded by your dad?
Yep.
Here in Columbus?
Here in Columbus, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the origin story of Sunny Street.
Yeah, so 2007, a concept was coming out of Florida called Peaches. Mm-hmm. And they were looking for franchising partners. And my dad and my family, we decided we liked the breakfast lunch concept. And we're based in Ohio, so Columbus tends to be an incubator as well. Yeah. So we first started developing Ohio, pretty quickly realized we had something. We purchased the brand and we rebranded to Sunny Street Café. Mm-hmm. And the rest, as they say, is history. We have 22 restaurants right now: Ohio, Missouri, Texas, Alabama, and Illinois. And yeah, it's been great.
Was your dad a restaurateur before that?
Yeah, so he's actually in the restaurant equipment business.
Okay.
And he had seen some of the trappings of other folks that got into the restaurant game, late night hours, a big bar component can grind you down a little bit, and really found some appeal in the fact that you close at 2:30, you have life after hours, and there's really a lifestyle element that you can't find other places in the restaurant industry, and that's really what attracted him to the concept.
Mm-hmm. And breakfast, was that also a goal of his to get into that breakfast space?
I don't know. He was a pizza guy back in the day, so I know he had it in his bones, and that's eventually how he started Best Equipment, but I think the breakfast piece was just more about the lifestyle and about the hours, mm-hmm. and the ability to kind of extend that to your workforce or your employees to have quality of life was it hit early on for us, and it's really proven to be kind of the bread and butter or the magic secret sauce, if you will.
Yeah. So I met your brother, Matt. Yeah. He's the chef. Uh-huh. You're the president. Yep. At what point did you guys get into the business? Was it day one?
Yeah, day one. Long time ago, I was in Chicago. I was in sales. He kind of pitched me on the idea of breakfast lunch concept, coming back to Ohio and getting it started, and saw a lot of potential for it. So mm-hmm. that's how he lured me back. And my brother had a culinary background, so that worked well. Mm-hmm. My sister actually is off premise and the catering guru of the company too. So it really is a family affair.
Yeah,
and we've all been at it since day one and developed the concept into what it is now.
2007, at that point in time, the breakfast space wasn't as busy as it is now. Because, at that point in time, you had Waffle House, Denny's, kind of the standard competitors. What was the potential that you all saw as a family at that point? Was the idea always, let's build this into a chain, or was it just, let's see how this goes?
It it was definitely, chain in mind, thought it could be scalable. Certainly seemed like a lot of white space because there wasn't a lot of breakfast lunch concepts out there. So, we built restaurants out ourselves, and we started dabbling in kind of the franchise space as well. So it was kind of a two-parter. We knew we wanted to run restaurants and have a little skin in the game, and to be able to learn from it and make decisions that impacted us, and it would impact franchisees too. So it works both ways, rather than ruling with an iron fist or some sort of mandate, which can happen in a lot of concepts and usually can get backwards pretty quickly. I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah. Did you franchise right out of the gates?
We did, yeah.
And how did that process go? Was it easy to find folks who were interested in being a part of it?
Early on, it was, yeah. Then you had 2008, 2009, and things changed pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
It's so funny looking back, and a lot of people still talk about COVID. It's kind of one of those sea change moments, but that was a big one back then. So, luckily we've attracted franchisees that kind of fit our mold, not necessarily folks with restaurant experience, more entrepreneurial, wanted a lifestyle change, and that's usually what attracted them to a conversation. As they came in, had the food, understood the service was different, and saw some potential in being able to be done at 3:00 on a bad day.
Yeah.
It's not not a bad gig.
Yeah. And are most of your franchisees just one unit franchisees, kind of a mom and pop approach?
Early on, but since have added 2 or 3 units. So
Gotcha.
Most of the franchisees are multi-unit folks. We have a few single store operators. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about the evolution of the concept from 2007 to today, because that's 18 years, and you got the recession in there, you got the pandemic in there, digital technologies come along. How have you seen the brand change?
Yeah, sure. That could be a long-winded answer. I think early on, the concept, what was born from Peaches, was a very basic breakfast: eggs, bacon, hash browns, not a lot of frills. Pretty much comfort food, home style food, and we've certainly evolved it menu-wise in a way that you still have to execute on eggs, bacon, hash browns, because that's the name of the game. That's what people come in for still, no matter how exotic your menu is, or how many twists and turns you put in the menu. But can you deliver on some of the classics in a different or an interesting way? Can you do some things that are enticing people to kind of step out of their comfort zone? If they always order that basic breakfast 9 times out of 10, can you make it 8 or 7 times out of 10 and do some unique things? So we've tried to evolve the menu in a way that suits our taste buds. That's one of the guiding lights, with keeping operational efficiency in mind. It is still basic breakfast. We want to be able to do it quickly and efficiently and consistently. So menu-wise, that's kind of how things have evolved. Now, when you look at the menu, you've got fancy pancakes, big tall stacks with decadent scratch sauces, and really splurge-worthy items, or certainly a brunch type Saturday and Sunday thing, not necessarily a power lunch where you got to go back to work kind of thing.
Right.
So just an example of the menu.
Sure.
Happy to go into some other ways we've evolved technology-wise, or
yeah. I mean, you guys did you get into delivery and all that good stuff?
Yeah. Luckily we were a little ahead of the game before COVID hit, and we're vetting our digital platform, or the tech stack was top of mind. It's difficult when you're a small concept though, and resources are limited. We've got 22 cafes, so where do you spend your money and your time, and what's going to be important? So we were a step ahead of it, so that we were able to launch with Olo as our third-party kind of online ordering platform almost immediately into the pandemic, and that suited us tremendously post-pandemic, because third-party and delivery and to-go continues to be a pretty sizable part of our business for a full-service restaurant. But luckily we were there, and we weren't playing too much catch-up on it, because that was the only thing keeping the lights on there for a second, when you couldn't have anybody in the dining room. So fortunate in that we've, I think, evolved our tech stack in a pretty thoughtful way, and a way that is not too hairy when you take a step back and look at it, because it can just get so splintered.
Yep.
So that that's a struggle for me, but that's getting a little off track.
What's fascinating to me, I mean, far be it from me to judge other people's dining habits, but like to have this experience delivered to me almost seems like not missing the point, but it's like there's something about sitting in these restaurants, having that great coffee, having the service. I imagine you guys really try to prioritize your in-store experience. Tell me about that, because I mean, you can't control how people want to experience Sunny Street, but I imagine kind of throwing something extra into the in-person experience helps to try to get everybody into the restaurant.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to that too, because breakfast doesn't traditionally deliver that well too. So there's going to be a bit of a trade-off when you get a delivery from a restaurant. The quality is not going to be exactly what it is when you're in store, but we had that extra hurdle. So packaging plays a big part of that. The actual menu itself, what we offer online. So we're pretty thoughtful about that. But back to the original question, like the service and the cheers familiarity piece when somebody comes into a breakfast restaurant, and there's that audio visual oratory component of like pouring a hot cup of coffee in front of them and remembering somebody's order or recognizing somebody from the community. I mean, that's pretty paramount for us, and it's something we just completely lean into. Part of the culture of the training is be a bright spot in somebody's day, and that seems cliche, and you hear that a lot from restaurant folks. But when we can affect people's day, it can be first thing in the morning. It set the tone. So that's why we have servers that have worked for us for 15 plus years, because we treat them well, they treat the customers well. Again, that lifestyle thing. So. Yeah, I mean, the service is huge.
Yep.
You like the food, that's got to be, part one. But if it's eggs, bacon, and hash browns, you can get that a lot of different places. Yeah. So, how are you taking care of the guest and making sure that it's a 10 out of 10?
I mean, to that point, just right up the road, you got a competitor. Other side of the road is Waffle House. There's one that just opened over there on 23. There's a lot of competitors out there now. I mean, this space has gotten pretty saturated. How, if at all, did that change your approach to things? Did you have to change things up to distinguish yourself?
Sure. We added an alcohol component a couple of years ago. That's the first thing that comes to mind. We were pretty adamant. We're very family focused. Our kids program is paramount. We do dinosaur-shaped pancakes, and we've done that for a long time, and that's a big hit. So we wanted to make sure that the atmosphere was something that was conducive to a family. And we didn't think alcohol fit in, and just wasn't a part for a long time. But, we recognized that we didn't want to get that veto vote, as they say, where if two people are going out, one wants mimosa, one doesn't. So we had a limited alcohol program, and it's been a nice boost, but it isn't kind of front and center. This isn't like a full 50 drink bar menu.
Not
type
the bar
thing.
experience.
No, it's not the bar experience. So that was one, like, I guess, newer wrinkle that we've added, and we're only maybe 2+ years into it. So we've seen some nice incremental sales from it, and still been able to kind of stay true to who we are. I think, the second part too is just, what the specials are, how our LTOs can be a little outside the box to get folks that are wanting something that's not traditional. So we push the envelope in a culinary manner, in a way that can get people excited. Is it something they can't make at home? But can we still execute it in, what is essentially a breakfast and lunch, one shift staffing, pretty simple operation. So, from a franchisor's perspective, we're really like balancing out, what can we do that's a wow item, but can we make sure that we can put it out the same way every time? And it's, it's a tricky line to straddle.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating too, because breakfast and brunch, you think about some brands that have been doing this for, Denny's has been around for 75 years.
Yeah.
That sort of breakfast diner experience is sort of a slice of Americana. There's a real, history heritage to that. Simultaneously, you have social media and, with everybody sort of pushing the envelope on crazy outside the box kind of menu items. Yeah. Maybe more of a question for your brother, but I'm just like wondering, like, how does that impact your innovation to say, like, this is one of those like real historical traditional day parts to serve, but there's always pressure to do something kind of out there to get customers' attention?
Yeah, I just personally, we like to have fun, and we like to try stuff that we think is interesting, but there's a certain point where it's gimmicky, where it's like too much of a shtick. So our compass on it, Matt and I and other people that help develop recipes, is it delicious? So we start there, and if it's delicious and it makes the cut, then we figure out, can we operate it? We figure out, does it actually make money?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you got to kind of reel it back. But I'll give you an example. So we're doing a pickle waffle, fried chicken and pickle waffle. So it was kind of micro LTO here. We've just ran it for like 30, 45 days. We didn't put a ton of emphasis on it. We did some social media promotion around it. Not selling a ton of them, but the people we do sell it to, you saw it on social, and they really love it. And it's very niche, right? If you're a pickle person, you try this, you'd be like, actually, that's really tasty, and it's not that strange. But when you hear it, it might give you a cause for concern.
Yeah,
I would say though that's probably as far as we've pushed it so far.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just how can we take a pancake and push it closer to a cake in terms of like a dessert factor, because that's that kind of brunch special splurge worthy type item that you can share with the table or whatever.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, savory or sweet, where do your sales tend to lie?
It's straight savory. Again,
Really?
Our combo, a hearty breakfast or a big bite breakfast, where you kind of customize what you're getting, your eggs, your side, your protein, that tends to be, 40% of the menu in some way, shape, or form. So you gotta understand that nuance and be able to cook the egg perfectly, and the bacon's got to be tasty, all that. So it's still very much a savory type day part, but the pancake piece tends to be the splurge or the weekend thing, and a nice add-on in terms of a check driver and something that can really stand out for someone, like the butter pecan pancakes, which aren't quite out yet,
but I can validate are quite delicious. Yeah. And again, like thinking about how to differentiate yourself, you guys you have seasonal menus, you're adapting the menu constantly, I'm sure. What are the trends that seem to resonate now? Because thinking about pickles, like a year ago, that would have seemed really outside the box.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, I've seen pickles some other places, so that's a smart move. How ahead of the curve do you have to be on the menu to make sure you're relevant?
Yeah, I think, we're not pushing boundaries. So, pickle was a bit of a trend, Jack. We understand that. And that made it a little bit of an easier lift. So, our menu leans a little like Tex-Mex heavy. So, lots of, we have some items that are, Mexican influence, spices, our hot sauce, lots of chilies. And so that's becoming a little more approachable for folks, particularly like our guest segment. So we like to stay up to date with what's going on and understand trends, but we're probably on like the second tier of the evolution. If a customer, reads an ingredient and they don't understand it, then, there might be a little education, but we're probably a little too ahead if we did that. So we've stumbled a little bit on that in the past, but generally speaking, I think people are apt to be a little more adventurous when they dine out now. So
right. Yeah. Is it easier to imagine to innovate on the sweet side of the menu than the savory side of the menu?
Yeah. However, that's not my preference. So you always have to balance like what you like and what you think your guests like. So that's also a bit of a struggle, but it's a fun one to have. So everybody likes to get in the lab and come up with new and tasty concoctions, but there's a lot of stuff that happens between the ideation piece and like actually like getting it to a table and making sure that you can execute it. So
because if you think about just like eggs and bacon, just your classic breakfast meal, like it doesn't need anything, aside from having high quality product. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of innovation you can do around that.
No.
So
that's what you got to figure out is, how can you do things that can entice or can add on to get people out of their kind of regularly scheduled program. Yeah. Because we're all creatures of habit, and maybe as restaurant folks, we tend to try new things a little bit more than your average consumer. But, in reality, people, they go to their standbys. They go to what they know what works.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Thinking about this day today, the whole industry is struggling. It's a unique economy. Yeah. It's not really predictable. It's kind of unprecedented, right? Because this mixture of factors of like what's going on with inflation, what's going on with all this, that, and the other thing. It's kind of been a crazy year after 4 crazy years. I'm curious how how are you guys seeing things going today? I mean, is breakfast insulated from that because it's such a habit for some people?
Yeah, I think that's the case for sure. I also think the fact that breakfast, at least our concept, it tends to be a little more affordable than some other concepts too. So because we're in that lane, we've been insulated. It certainly has been an uneven year, particularly the first half. The positive thing is like we've got some wind in our sails right now. We're bucking trends. We are pretty attuned to what's going on in the industry and what's going on with our competitors. So when we see guest traffic positive, and when we see sales comps positive, we're really really excited about that.
That's unique right now.
Yeah, I know. So when they say flat's the new up, and I'm like, well, we're actually up. I don't know. I don't exactly can't put my finger on it, but I think it's the aforementioned points, and I think we're hitting on all cylinders in terms of service and kind of some of the menu innovation stuff. So, I'm really hopeful that it continues through the year and into next year, and who knows? But like you said, it has been crazy, and it's certainly a very challenging environment. Given a variety of factors, distribution, labor, all that stuff. That's not unique to anybody. I mean, we're still fighting those challenges, but they say sales cure all, so all woes.
Right. And if you have traffic and sales are up right now, you have to imagine when the economy actually gets better, you guys are, in a perfect position to capitalize on that. Yeah. Right. So like how far ahead do you look? When you're as president of this company, are you having to come up with 3-5 year plans, or are you guys trying to just kind of do things one day at a time?
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle. We're certainly looking into 2026. Luckily, I think we understood that this year was going to be pretty choppy, and so we anticipated that and made some decisions regarding that. And that's everything just from how we're staffing at the corporate level and at the restaurant level to product sourcing and LTO sourcing. So we really like. This is an example. We love barbacoa. We've had a lot of success with that as kind of a protein item that we've brought for LTOs. But beef is just astronomical. So we spent a lot of time on that last year preparing for this year, and then we had to kind of cut the cord on it because it just didn't make sense to serve and sell a product that you're not really going to make any money on. So those are tough decisions when you put a lot of work into that. But you got to be nimble, and that is kind of one of the good things about being family owned and a smaller companies. We're just more nimble. We can be flexible about that, and we can pivot quickly and make better decisions up kind of last minute if you need to.
Thinking back up, again, to sort of this idea of breakfast being a little bit insulated from what's going on today, I imagine your customer frequency must be higher than industry average. Maybe I'm projecting here, but when I find a good breakfast place like here, it's like it becomes sort of the go-to place, and that sort of Saturday morning experience that it's a little different than a lunch spot or a dinner spot that you might go to, here and there. For some reason, that sit-down breakfast is a part of your routine. Do you guys experience a lot of frequency with customers?
Yeah, it's the regulars game, and that's worth its weight in gold when you can count on that kind of frequency. But it's back to that. Recognizing somebody, knowing their order, knowing their name, having servers that have worked for you for as long as they have, they're working those shifts and they know those folks. So I think people, do tend to find they find their standby breakfast place. And if you can deliver early on and make that impression the first or second time, like you tend to have them, and then you're the place, and there's not a whole lot of adventuring outside of, where's your spot. So that serves us really well, because that loyal customer is what keeps you afloat when, economy's rough or guest counts are down. If you can rely on those folks, they're helping pay the bills for sure. So we don't take that lightly at all, and we try to acknowledge that as best we can.
Let's talk about growth. 22 locations now, multiple states. Do you have a very active approach to franchising? Are you trying to aggressively grow, or is it a little bit more like as people come in, the inbound, you just wait for the inbound, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a little more the latter. We have started to, I wouldn't call it aggressive, but we've started to market the opportunity a little bit more here over the last year and a half. but we're trying to be cognizant of growing thoughtfully. We're doing really well. I said we own restaurants and those do really well too. But we think that the concept is pretty proven right now and the opportunity is really good. So we're targeting kind of markets and concentric markets to us. We wouldn't go somewhere that's too far removed where distribution would be an issue or there's no brand presence whatsoever. So we're trying to be selective in that way. But so far it's been really positive, and we have some good activity on that front. So I'm hopeful that next year we're gonna have a few more stores open.
How do you work with the franchisee to introduce Sunny Street to that community? Because again, going back to the idea of people find their favorite spot and they stick to it, it must be difficult to do new customer acquisition.
Yeah, it's really difficult. We've been lucky in that most of our restaurants have had owner operators, which those people tend to be kind of fixtures in the community, well plugged in, and with some tips and tricks in terms of just talking to the right folks, and whether it's chamber or city council or ways to get the community involved with a new store opening. The word can spread that way, but I mean it's difficult. It takes a ton of money. Attention is just so scattered these days, and everybody and everything is just, they're competing for a little bit of your time or just your eyeballs on something for a minute or two. So the next store opening will be a brand new challenge on how do we get the word out in the market that we're here, particularly if it's a new market. So if you got that secret sauce, you just go ahead and write it down on a little slip of paper and you pass it over to me. You'll write a book. Yeah, we're not talking anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's, again, I think in the last 5 years, we've seen this category in particular really take off. And I wonder, maybe you can confirm this, but I suspect sort of the post-COVID, everybody wanted that sort of comfortable dine-in experience that just felt like I'm getting out into the world again, and I'm going to be taken care of and everyth's okay. And this reminds me of when I was a kid. It felt like that kind of really surged 2022, 23. But the result might have been you got some oversaturation, and perhaps even with some competitors that maybe didn't know what they were doing. I guess what I am curious about from your perspective is, how does this industry shake out? How does this category shake out, do you think, in the coming years?
Yeah, it's definitely gotten crowded, more so the last few years than ever since I can remember, since I've been involved in it. I stopped short of talking ill about anybody, sure. But I mean, it runs the gamut from places that are, very bar heavy. That's the focus of the concept, and you can, drive checks and AUVs that way. Whether or not that's sustainable, I don't know. To, really stripped down, kind of cookie cutter experiences where the food quality is taking a back seat. The build out is taking a back seat, so the comfort of the actual experience takes a back seat. So we fall somewhere in the middle in there, and it's served us well so far. But I think it'll be interesting because you can only have so many breakfast places. So what's setting you apart, and what's actually truly going to resonate long term for getting repeat guests and getting loyal guests, like we talked about before. So. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious, what are some of the stronger headwinds that you guys face? I mean, you mentioned labor, beef prices, like that. Yeah. You kind of pick which one, but as you see it, what are the kind of things that keep you up at night?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything unique to us. We're very conscientious of just in-store traffic. That's something that, casual dining, is fighting against. When you have fast casual and you have so much third party and you have QSR and everybody thinks, breakfast is profitable and, oh, hey, we can add breakfast, then, that tends to be a bit of a challenge for you. So, we keep an eye on that, and we want to make sure that the dining room and our in-store guests is really healthy. We did a remodel we sort of remodeled post-COVID, and one thing was, how do we service third party, because it's through the roof right now, but we didn't design these restaurants to be able to accommodate that. So what can we do in store, to retrofit, but bearing in mind we just do not want to disrupt the in-store guest, because what you had happening was we had kind of this old school go pay at the cash stand queue where we've gone away from that because we have handhelds now. But you had everybody coming in and get their, that's the host stand too. Everybody coming to get their third party delivery, and it was just a crazy mess. So when we retrofitted, we made sure like the third party pickup was not going to disrupt the guest dine-in experience, and that was like one of the number one goals. And so moving forward too on the new store designs, that's very much in play, because the delivery has just not really softened for us, but it's just not as profitable too. So back to making sure that the dining guest experience is great, and that foot traffic stays trending in the right direction. That's certainly something we're keeping a close eye on all the time.
I feel like everything I hear from folks is that experience is so key, like I was talking about before. And if you look at just today, we're closing out quarterly earnings, a ton of them this week. It's interesting because if you see the full service restaurants, of course, Chili's, but Texas Roadhouse, Bloomin' Brands, there's another one that I'm not thinking of right now, but like they're actually positive, and it seems to be that customers, they just want to get back into restaurants. But it's interesting because, to your point, I don't think delivery is softening anytime soon. So I'm just curious where, how do you figure that balance out to where it's like you're a full service restaurant, but you have delivery? It doesn't matter. You just embrace it all.
I mean, you have to, and I mean, you hear that. I think it's a cliche now, but you meet the guests where they, want to find you. So, that all being said, there's something about, the idea that folks still would like this, to be served, and they want that familiarity. That part of it hasn't gone away. So I do believe that the accessibility and the approachability of Sunny Street, where it's kind of upscale diner model, where it's not too stuffy, it's not too pretentious, and you can just come in and relax and get a nice meal and have that service piece. I think that plays into it. But that is the $100,000 question is, something's got to give, right? Because the pie's only so big.
Yeah, and especially with delivery like that the marketplace is chaotic. With everybody on that marketplace, and you had the whole virtual brand trend for a while too, which made it even more crazy. I think we always just sit there waiting for the third party delivery, especially, to at some point kind of dissipate as restaurants figure out this thing on their own. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I think that there's a bloodlust for convenience in America. So that part of it is what hasn't shaken this thing, even as people have increased prices on the third-party platforms. You just haven't seen the dip because the convenience factor is just so alluring. I do think that something will give because, now in the third-party marketplaces, you're required to advertise in order to stand out. So I'm sure you've heard this from other folks too, but that really takes a bite out of what you're doing. And it's like, man, at what point does this not make any sense for us anymore? So you can't have it all the ways, and it's a very delicate balance. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, because I know that won't be sustainable for us if that trend continues, where you basically have to buy up to be on the first page or to come up in searches. It's like, well, all right, you're already getting a big enough bite, and now suddenly we're supplementing it even more. So that's a tricky one for sure.
It's bananas. Yeah. I keep thinking like somebody's going to come in here and disrupt this, but hasn't happened yet. Maybe eventually. I got to know, this is a little off the wall, but like, how is it running a business with your siblings and your dad? How do you prevent from killing each other?
Yeah,
I would kill my siblings if I were in a business with them.
I do. I get that a lot. Luckily we have a really good relationship, and we've been very close for a long time, but you definitely need like a separation of church and state. So, we have our own silos and we work together on certain projects, but then there's a fair amount of autonomy too. Also, in a small company, you wear a lot of hats too. So you have the ability to kind of go to another place or another project if need be, so that you're not totally butting heads. So, it does make for some interesting board meetings from time to time, but all in all, it's been very positive. So I might not be the norm, or we might not be the norm on that, but I think if you asked Matt or my sister Maria, they would say the same thing.
And what will Thanksgiving be like? Do you talk shop the whole time?
A little bit. I try really hard to park that, at the door when I get home. And on holidays, I always preface, I'm like, hey, I know we're not talking shop, but did you look at X, Y, and Z? So, the sidebars do happen. It's just it's just the nature of the beast. But that said, we'll kind of keep water cooler talk to a minimum. Sure. And religion and politics to a minimum. So.
So the whole country needs to figure that one out, right?
Yeah, really.
All right, last question. What is next for Sunny Street?
Yeah, as you kind of asked, we're looking to grow. So, we're looking to open some company stores here in the next year. We're looking to grow our franchisee base. Our franchisees are looking at opening stores too. So we think we've got some growth on the horizon, which is obviously really positive. It does things for brand recognition. It does things for buying power. It just gives you more resources. So for a chain like ours that, is in this, 22, 23 store range, adding some store count, I think would be a really positive thing for us. The concept wise or four walls wise, we're just going to continue to make service a focus and, being a bright spot in people's days and trying to be exemplary at that. And then, just push menu innovation to find things that are, on the cusp of, being too crazy or too decadent, but accessible for people to get out of their comfort zones and walk away and say, man, that was delicious. I couldn't make that home. I would come back for that, or I would tell a friend about it. So
sure.
Yeah, it's exciting times. Yeah.
All right, Mike Stasko of Sunny Street Café. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam.
That was my interview with Sunny Street Café president Mike Stasko Jr. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 4 takeaways. My first takeaway is that executing on your core menu items is the most important thing that you can do with your menu. The temptation to innovate on your menu is really strong right now. I get it. Traffic is still in a really bad spot. Sales are negative across the board. Restaurant companies are looking for anything they can do to help, and a lot of them are turning to menu innovation, LTOs, anything fancy on the menu that's going to get the customer's attention. It's a knee-jerk reaction, and sometimes it can work. But as Mike pointed out, breakfast consumers especially want the core menu items of bacon and eggs. They want those things that they have eaten their whole lives that are something they can turn to reliably and have a quality experience. They're not super adventurous. Now, that may not be true in other categories, but it is often true for a lot of restaurants, is that most of the consumers coming in your doors already know what they want, and what they want is probably one of those core menu items that make up the foundation of your menu. Point is if you're not executing on those core menu items because you're distracted by all these other things that you're trying to use to tempt people to come in your doors, then you may lose your loyal customers, the people who are coming in for those things that they've reliably gotten over and over and over again. So if you really want to lean into your menu to improving the state of your business, really, you need to not forget that your core menu items are what are getting people in the door in the first place, and they have to be executed to perfection, or else you're going to lose the most important customers that you have. My second takeaway is that trying some new things with your core menu is a great way to innovate. So, just as I mentioned that you have to really focus on that core menu, you can also look at that core menu for opportunities for innovation. So, for example, pancakes are a staple at Sunny Street, as Mike was talking about. I can attest, I take my kids there, we get the pancakes. They are delicious. But the fact of the matter is, pancakes as a platform provide that core menu item that people come in to get at Sunny Street. And it's also this opportunity, this canvas for innovation that they can use for trying out new flavors. They can be both things. You can have a core menu that people turn to reliably for that high quality, thing that they get over and over. And you can sort of play around the edges with it. You can try something a little bit different. I love the way Mike put it. He said, people are going to come in 9 times out of 10 for that same thing that they always get. And maybe 1 time out of 10, they're going to get something different. Can you move the needle up to maybe 8 times out of 10, they get that same thing, and 2 times out of 10, they get the other thing, or maybe 7 times? Fact of the matter is, you have to ease your customers sometimes into that innovation, and you can do that with your core menu items by trying something a little bit different with them. So again, you don't have to try something completely new, some totally different menu platform, some totally different ingredient that you have to, add a new SKU to your menu. Sometimes you can just play around the edges of your core menu item to catch the attention of those loyal guests and get them to try that new thing. My third takeaway is that meal occasions dictate how people eat, and your menu should accommodate. This should be Restaurant 101, but I feel like I need to say this for those of you who are looking to menu innovation to really capture new guests and repeat guests alike. Which is to say that, if I use a Sunny Street example, Mike talked about how they have a type of customer who's going to come in for breakfast and brunch on Saturday or Sunday, and they have a type of customer who's coming in for that power lunch, that business lunch on a weekday, and they're eating completely different things. If you don't give them those options, if you don't give them maybe a healthier choice for that power lunch and a more indulgent choice for that Saturday brunch, well, they're not going to come because they're looking for that particular thing. Again, you know this already, but I want you to just think about this as you think about your menu innovation. As you're menu innovating across weekdays and weekends, different day parts, breakfast, lunch, dinner, at different consumer bases, different locations, the customer can be a little bit predictable in what they're looking for, and that should drive your menu innovation. If you get too offhand, if you're looking to offer indulgent things for menu, healthy things for Saturday breakfast, you might be wasting your time because you can look to some of that consumer predictability for what they are going to actually order. My fourth and final takeaway is that the Cheers experience really makes a difference. Of course, what I'm talking about is that beloved 80s sitcom with that theme song you have already in your head where everybody knows your name. Mike just talked about how this is really paramount to Sunny Street's success, which is that when you walk in the door, if there is somebody there to welcome you, know your name, lead you maybe to your regular table, and ask if you want your regular order, that is golden. When you have that kind of relationship with your guest, that is the best kind of loyalty you can have. Breakfast, as Mike pointed out, is a category where people are more prone to picking their place than any other menu category or any other day part. Because when you have that place that you go to and you go there enough where they know your name, they know your order, and you're taken care of, for some reason it hits different in the morning day part because you're tired. You just need that great cup of coffee. You're irritable, and it all turns around when you walk into that place where they know your name. And this is working for Sunny Street. Again, Sunny Street Cafe experiencing positive traffic and sales comps. And, they're not doing anything so outside the box to achieve that. What they're doing is they're executing a great menu and great service. And sometimes you have to have that reminder that those are the important things that customers want rather than the bells and whistles on the menu or in the service structure. So how do you invest in your team, your employees, your servers enough to where that hospitality is a difference maker? Encourage them to learn the guest names, encourage them to learn the guests' regular orders, and start leaning into that for when those customers come back. I guarantee it makes a difference because that is what consumers want, especially in this crazy world we now live in. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you're listening to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again, and